GM Fox fam. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a KeepKey AMA that we're going to get started here. Let me see if I can pull Lo-Fi up off the stage. Oh, thank you. So if you didn't hear me over Lo-Fi, we've got a KeepKey AMA with the two gentlemen who have created the proposal for the KeepKey Workstream. We had a couple of conversations, light discussions during the governance call last week, and we decided it would be best to have a greater AMA to field questions and to allow Pasta and Highlander to chat a little more in depth about what the plans are with the KeepKey Workstream and how the DAO and this proposal are going to fit into that. So I'm going to pass it off to these two here, and I think we might have some time for questions as well. Yeah, I guess it's an AMA, so we'll definitely have time for questions. But I'll hand it off to Pasta and Highlander here.
Hey, welcome everyone. Appreciate everybody's attendance, and I'm glad to see that there's such strong interest in the KeepKey Workstream, how we're going to be interacting with the DAO and what we're doing. So I think the way this might be most effective, given the strength of conversation during the last time that we addressed the community, might be to tailor this in such a way that we can best suit the time we've got allocated here to addressing the concerns of the community, be those objections to the proposal as it's been laid out or requests for further information. So I guess to start, are there any outstanding questions from any of the community members? Is there anything that any of you who attended the last discussion have thought of in the meantime that you'd like to start off with talking to us about?
I didn't have anything directly to start with. Maybe it's best for you guys to run through what you had prepared first. Maybe we can pull up some other people on stage for direct questions, but yeah, it doesn't look like there's anyone steaming to start it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, we were thinking about either skimming the proposal itself, or we do have a roadmap that we prepared prior to KeepKey acquisition. Should we just drop that in the chat for people to look at, Pasta, you think?
Sure, we can do both of those. So let's drop a link to the presentation in the chat and then go over it.
Yeah, there is a Zoom link as well. If one of you guys wants to actually walk through it and share it with folks,
okay,
we can connect into that Zoom right there at the top of the stage chat.
Okay, the context of this deck was during the negotiation with acquiring KeepKey, and this was a lot of our long-term goals and ambitions for how to direct KeepKey into a more ETH-focused and DeFi-focused product. So I can go ahead and hop in the Zoom.
While that is, while Highlander's preparing that up, Ocean, I did see your comment in the ShapeShift DAO stage chat. I do really appreciate the thoughtful and considerate feedback that you've given here. I did want to say a couple of things. I was going to say this in private, but I think it's probably best to say this in public now that I'm thinking about that a little more deeply. I'm glad that we are of two differing points of view here, and I'm glad that you took the time to really think about your objections to this and deliver them, openly and articulately. I think that this kind of back and forth is of tremendous importance to the community, and establishing this kind of arrangement between the people, what am I trying to say, preparing proposals and those community members who are interested in reviewing them is something that we should try to build going forward. I don't think it's at all in the best interest of the community if proposals make it through governance unchallenged. And so I think some protracted discussion about these is not only healthy for the individual proposals as they're being presented, but will motivate people who are making proposals in the future to put proposals before governance that are of higher quality. So don't feel at all like you've got to be concerned about dominating the conversation. If you've had these have all been great objections, great points, and things that are absolutely worth talking about. And chances are, if you've had these concerns, then many of the other DAO community members have had these concerns as well, whether or not they've what am I trying to say? Raise those concerns publicly. So more than happy to have you up on stage, as long as there are questions in your mind that are still outstanding and have gone unaddressed.
First off, just want to highlight that I really appreciate that point of view, and I absolutely agree that the way that we get stronger as a community is differing opinions and working those together. So cheers to that, and I'm glad that you guys are of the same mind there. It's more so that I just don't want to. Let's put it this way: I've had a lot of my questions answered. I've already kind of formulated a point of view on the what I think of the current structure and the current proposal, and I want to make sure that others have the opportunity that you guys have given me to get their questions answered, because I think you have responded to a lot of it in the forum, and so maybe there's other people that have other questions and would benefit more from their questions being answered than me kind of going through the multitude of questions I still have.
Sure. Totally understood. Sorry, what were you gonna say, Highlander?
Yeah, I'd kind of like to open addressing some of these things. I wanted to start where when we first were talking about taking over KeepKey, one of our largest goals was to continue to support the DAO and to support the platform. And I've been extremely impressed and excited with the professionalism and just the quality of the product of the ShapeShift platform. And so when we took over KeepKey, we wanted to do everything we can for KeepKey to help the platform. So I really want to bring up that the responsibilities of this workstream is not to make KeepKey more money. The responsibilities of this workstream is for us to do everything we can to support the needs and ambitions of the ShapeShift platform itself. And this, when I was originally brainstorming some of this, I was looking into using the KeepKey funds, which is essentially my personal investment funds, into KeepKey into bounties, and to do some kind of development process and to kind of just help certain features that we wanted into the platform and into KeepKey ourselves. And it just felt like that would have been an inadequate way to do resources. Essentially, we need persistent development efforts into very specific things. But I want to reiterate that the things that the workstream are doing, it's about supporting maintenance and the KeepKey integration on the platform itself. It's about customer support for KeepKey, and this customer support is very centered around the platform. KeepKey users are using the platform, so that there's a lot of overlap with how users are interacting with KeepKeys and how they're interacting with the platform. The development of KeepKey related features requested by the engineering workstream in the V2 web application. The technical support for the portions of future bounties accepted by the ShapeShift DAO involving KeepKey itself. Technical support for portions of future bounties accepted by the DAO. Technical support for partners. That's going to be a big one as we get more and more integrators and partners building features into the platform. There's going to be more and more need for direct KeepKey support and direct technical support for those partners. And just as a whole, we want to negotiate, organize opportunities with those external partners at the benefit for ShapeShift, KeepKey, or essentially both. This includes, but is not limited to, adding native support for DeFi platforms to KeepKey. This is direct and customized DeFi interactions on the device itself. Part of the slides and the DeFi pitch that we want to take KeepKey in the future is to have more and more what we call contract insight operations on the KeepKey, and this is going to be heavily DeFi focused. So when you're doing a swap, or if you're doing LP positions or any kind of advanced DeFi features, we want to be very verbose and specific on what the user is doing on their device. And we can really make DeFi a much safer place by addressing this. So yeah, I just wanted to open with that. People are welcome to review the forum post of talking about the responsibilities. But yeah, I'll hand it back off to Pasta. And if anybody wants to come up and ask questions, we welcome questions throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, so maybe a good thing to do is start at a high level of how we intend, discussion about how we intend to interact with ShapeShift, our motivations for doing that, and our motivations for doing that. I think one of the maybe more common, one of the more common objections that I've seen since we originally posted the proposal to the forum is that maybe there's we're not all on the same page about what the proposed relationship between KeepKey and ShapeShift through the workstream is. So I think it's important for us to clarify that what we're not doing we're not asking ShapeShift for an investment of $150,000 to support KeepKey. KeepKey, so in outlining our development roadmap, we realized that we've got quite a lot of work assigned a high priority that is directly relevant to ShapeShift. Being on the engineering workstream, I recognized that the value of KeepKey to ShapeShift has been realized by the product team. And so the engineering workstream has prioritized a number of development tasks that are directly related to KeepKey. So we could continue on as we've been interacting so far as two separate entities that are inextricably intertwined with two separate roadmaps. Both, what am I trying to say? Engaging in high priority development tasks that have something to do with each other, or we can join forces and we can split the engineering costs to tackle this work. I think that's in the best interest of both parties because the direct results of the development work, benefit us individually. We've got reduced cost by pooling monetary resources to undertake the development tasks. And then because, we'll be working closely together, we should be able to develop at higher velocity than the two teams working independently would be able to. There's also the benefit of shared context between the two teams because we've got subject matter expertise from or on both sets of products available on one team, and all of this sort of thing. So again, it wouldn't be the case that a $150,000 investment would be sufficient to bring, a company off the ground. There's been a lot of objection from the point of view, it seems, that that's what we intend here. And I want to clarify that's not the case. This is a cooperative, we're trying to establish a cooperative development agreement between the two teams that only exists for as long as it makes sense to, right? So, this is a workstream that is necessarily of finite lifetime. If there if the work stream, what am I trying to say, is quite productive, works at high velocity, cranks out this development work, and at the end of one term there's no more work to do, then it doesn't stand to reason that the work stream should continue to exist. But as long as there is this category of work that benefits both ShapeShift and KeepKey equally, I think it makes a lot of sense to pool resources and tackle these jobs together rather than do them independently. So that's the primary motivation for establishing the workstream here. Does that make sense, or did I create any new questions with that explanation?
Yeah, actually, well, it answered some questions, maybe, which, if I understand the answer, would raise more questions. And so the question that one of my questions is, well, first of all, I also want to say thank you for putting this together so that we could have this discussion. I do think that it's important, the proposal and this process. So I appreciate Pasta and Highlander, both of you, for that. So one of my questions is, how do we know, like, what's the definition of success for this 6-month period, right? I think I've heard John, and I agree, he kind of frames this as, I think this could be a good 6-month experiment. I go, okay, maybe this is a good 6-month experiment, but how are we going to judge whether the experiment is successful or not? And if we get a lot of coding done, and if there's more coding work to do, maybe we should continue it. That's not good enough for me at this point, because I can tell you right now, no matter how much we do in 6 months, there will be a shit ton more that we will still need to do.
Totally.
That's right. What we intend to do is increase the number of KeepKey users that are trading across the ShapeShift platform ultimately. We want to retain KeepKey users, and we want to keep KeepKey users. We want to ensure that KeepKey users continue to use ShapeShift as their primary trading platform.
And I think a definition of success would be if we can reach out to the community, and if they are happy with the experience on the platform with the KeepKey. I would like to work with Willie in marketing and product to find hard KPIs for that, for customer satisfaction, customer usage, KeepKey shifts, any kind of hard data we have, and then use those as KPIs for the workstream for us to focus on. But the success for us would be KeepKey users using the platform and our users being happy with the experience.
And we should be able to measure that quantitatively.
How?
We are not taking metrics on what am I trying to say? Like wallet statistics, right? Like how many connections we've got of each wallet type per unit time. But with the Pendo integration, we might be able to start gathering that sort of data anonymously. So what we would look for is a significant increase in the average number of KeepKey users per unit time.
So and I think, right, what I heard, which I think is correct, I think the only way we could have that is through the Pendo, through alpha. Or whatever the heck we're gonna.
I don't know about only. We can ask the community to come forward and when they volunteer statistics. We just want to. It's very important that we respect privacy a lot more than we did in the past. So we can't take hard numbers the way we did in pre-ShapeShift, and I think that's a good thing. But I welcome every opt-in ability for us to get feedback on our users and be a user-driven company.
Well, Pendo.
Spot on that.
Pendo would be opt-in. Anyone who would go to alpha, I don't know if we're still going to call it alpha.shapeshift.com, they would be opting in to have their metrics collected. I'm a little wary of doing a survey and like just querying, and if more people are happy with KeepKeys than they were before, that's I don't know, that doesn't feel good enough, I guess. I don't know exactly how to say it.
We do have a customer database with well over 40,000 of KeepKey users, including their emails. For me, large numbers on that, considering how poor our if you go on Amazon and look at our reviews, we definitely have a lot of work to do. I think if we start surveying high numbers and if they are happy with V2, I think that would be worth publicizing and giving you guys access to. But I would love to get feedback on that.
I understand the difficulty of being able to track and identify specific KeepKey users. Maybe we can get some creative stuff around like the number of updates installed or downloaded or something like that. Maybe we can get a little creative around there. But I think, ultimately the most important KPIs are the DAO's bottom lines, right? And the opportunity to be able to point to a specific hardware wallet in our UI and recommend a specific hardware wallet and get 50% of the revenues, that's an immediate revenue stream that will turn on as soon as this partnership closes. And I think it's compelling too. Just cool for our narrative to be able to say, hey, buy this awesome hardware wallet that has a close relationship with ShapeShift DAO, and 50% of the revenues of the sale go to the ShapeShift DAO. Also, our other metrics, like the amount of deposits into the urn vaults and the amount of trades that happen and stuff. We might not be able to attribute that directly to KeepKey users, but we do have data to know that a large percentage of our current usage base in the current TVL that we have, assets in orbit, are on KeepKeys. And so, to me, I think I look at this as very similar to investments in other work streams, right? And that just because KeepKey is also a private company doesn't mean that they can't also contribute to a work stream and be funded by the community and add value to the DAO. And to me, when I compare this to other work streams that we're funding, $150K for 6 months seems like a relatively low cost for clear benefit, right? They have a clear roadmap for what they're going to be working on and the value that they'll add, which are things that we want as a community. We've already identified these things on our roadmap as things that we want. And there's an immediate revenue potential, plus just the long-term upside. If we can make KeepKey the best hardware wallet, which it really has a lot of potential to be with not crazy investment, in my opinion, and make ShapeShift the best interface to use KeepKey, that can really pay dividends. So
see, that all sounds great, but it's all a bunch of assumptions. That's just not. I just want to know the data that's going to back it. How are we going to be able to objectively measure whether this 6-month period was a success, which would tell us, do we do it again, or was this a failed experiment? If we go on with just a bunch of nebulous stuff,
Sure.
then at the end of the 6 months, we're going to be no better off than we are.
Sure. With the Pento integration, we should be able to track the wallets that are being used by customers that are trading across the ShapeShift platform. What we intend to do is to bring more KeepKey users to the ShapeShift platform regularly. And so it shouldn't be difficult to measure that trend, right? If we keep track of the number of KeepKey users per week or something like that, or any other unit time, I'm just using a week as an example, and we see a notable increase as the future KeepKey workstream produces results, then it's overwhelmingly likely those results are attributable to the action to the KeepKey workstream. And I think that is the primary metric that we ought to use to measure the success of the workstream.
So I think that needs to be just like all the proposals for workstream creations. List, here are the goals, here's the measurable goals of the workstream. That needs to be included here, I think.
Yeah, I think that's entirely reasonable. I would agree with that.
And I could totally I do think that KeepKey sales, if KeepKey sales start to rise, I do think that even though they wouldn't, and V2 is the only place for them to use them, I think KeepKey sales are a proxy for there's more traffic being driven to V2. You could argue for that. So anyway, there should be a few. I think we just need to think, and they don't all need to be answered on this call. So I'll get off the stage now on this topic. But I would just like some real thinking on these metrics and to include them as success criteria. There is a template that I don't think this proposal followed, but I think you could take this and get this more into the workstream proposal template, and which does include that success criteria or goals section. Okay, thank you.
Yep,
thank you.
Great feedback. We will modify that in ideation for sure.
I can't move to the audience. I don't know what's going on.
We're stuck up here. But yeah, I see Mr. Nerdhair came up. Let's field any questions.
Yeah, so I wanted to offer sort of an alternative way thinking about this proposal from an economic standpoint. I've been thinking about this over the last few days. I think that while the as a software company, essentially, this is not quite as a cut and dry analogy, but I think it's much better to think about this as a possible vertical integration rather than a partnership with some other company in general. And the reason for that is that we would, or I think it would be wise of us to make it a priority for our platform to provide first-class hardware wallet support for all of the integrations that we would like to make with partners. Our entire business model now is based around integrating with multi-chain, multi-protocol, all sorts of broad-based DeFi stuff. And the ability, we can always deliver that with our native software wallet. But that will limit, it will essentially select for only people that are willing to, or that either use our platform with low amounts of funds or are willing to put high amounts of funds into a software wallet. That's probably not the correct user to be targeting. If somebody loses $1,000 on our platform, that's bad. If somebody uses $1 million on our platform, someone's going to get sued, and we're going to end up with like a Wall Street Journal hit piece. We have hardware support, wallet support currently, but only through, discounting KeepKey. Our hardware wallet support is mediated via MetaMask, which means it's Ethereum only, which sort of torpedoes the ability to provide a equal first-class experience for people who are doing the smart thing and probably have, relatively large amounts of money in any other chain. Ledger and Trezor, the big two hardware wallets in the space, they're great. I use their products, but they don't and can't innovate to match what we want to include on the timelines that we would like to include it. As an example, working with Native Rune and Thorchain, there is a Ledger app for it, but at least at time of release, I'm not sure now, but at least at time of release, it wasn't official. And I don't think Trezor does it at all, even now. If we wanted to, when we did integrate Thorchain with Axiom, and we're coming up on doing it with WebV2, the ability to have a close partnership with what we should essentially consider a supplier, of hardware wallet support, almost like we're buying it from a vendor to help make our product. So I think that the appropriate metrics to think about aren't how much, is this going to cost us versus how much will we make, what's the revenue sharing going to look like, and so forth. The question is, how does this help us make a better product? And how can making the better product, how can that quality increase and any revenue that results from it be quantified? The ability to, the changing that economic paradigm in about how we think of it means that, we would recognize, for example, that one of the reasons that you might want to integrate with tightly integrate with the supplier would be to improve reliability, essentially, which maps really nicely onto making sure that we can deliver features by, updating KeepKey firmware, by, solving problems rapidly with the engineers directly at the source versus having to wait for Ledger or Trezor or so forth. So I think that's a better way to think about it, and hopefully helps.
Yeah, thank you for that, Reid.
I wanted to field a question from Darwin. I've been trying, there's been a lot of comments, but 6 months was just to follow precedents to allow change. Ideally, we would have very similar terms for the next batch, and we have enough funding to put our side up again in the next 6 months if the funding was similar. We wanted to do it again for the next 6 months and continue to share profits. We just wanted to be able to be flexible to either scale up or scale down depending on the success. So the reason 6 months was brought up was simply to kind of follow precedents with the other work streams. If you have any more questions, feel free to raise your hand and come up here, Darwin.
It's a good question from Major Hayes in the ShapeShiftDAO stage discussion as well. I'll read it, and Major Hayes, if you want to jump up here, feel free. Oh, you're already here.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Yeah, so my question is related to the current relationship, because a lot of people here are asking about, like, well, is this an investment? What are we going to get out of it? But right now, we're currently working on two specific KeepKey features. We have
That's right.
one feature that we're working on, or I should say that you're working on, but it's on behalf of the engineering workstream and also the KeepKey setting stuff. So the way I'm looking at this is we're currently funding 100% of KeepKey development related to our platform.
That's right.
Was that we'll only fund 50% of KeepKey development related to our platform. So wonder if you could speak to like how the current relationship is between the DAO and KeepKey.
That's right. Yeah. So this is a great point. And it was in part consideration of this at the time that those features were prioritized that motivated the establishment of this kind of relationship between KeepKey and ShapeShift. So the ShapeShift DAO conversations between the engineering and product work streams has already identified that it is advantageous from the perspective of ShapeShift to devote resources to developing a strong KeepKey integration. There was some contention as to whether or not it was in fact the responsibility of the work stream, the engineering work stream, to spend time on features like the KeepKey settings in the UI, and currently for the last several weeks I've been working on an asset edition on KeepKey. So from our point of view, I do agree with, I see arguments for both sides there, right? It's obviously advantageous to ShapeShift to do this, but should it be entirely ShapeShift's responsibility to fund this directly? It's obviously advantageous to KeepKey if we do this, but are we working most efficiently if we take on the entire responsibility of integrating these features in the open source platform? It seems this is an example of the kinds of tasks that I was talking about, where there's a clear mutual advantage here. And so at the current time, ShapeShift is devoting resources from the engineering workstream and funds from the treasury to build these features into the platform. And under the relationship that we're proposing here, we at KeepKey would pay for 50% of this and devote some of our engineering effort to helping to do the same integrations that the ShapeShift engineering workstream has already prioritized. In addition to doing that, we are offering to share 50% of sales revenues with the ShapeShift treasury, so that any benefits that are conferred to ShapeShift by resources that are devoted to these efforts through the engineering workstream are shared back with the DAO. The interest here is, what am I trying to say? The advantage here is in the long term. The short-term advantage is fundamental, and we're not very concerned about that, but I think there are lasting long-term benefits to the results of a partnership of this style, and that's what we're primarily concerned with.
Hey, Nick, under the whole this topic of cost and funding development. If this passes, do you move to the KeepKey workstream, leave the engineering workstream? Do you stay in both workstreams? What?
If this passes, I'd stay in both. We've got what am I trying to say? Engineering roles outlined under this workstream, and it's the people that fill those roles that would be responsible for the overwhelming majority of the development. This won't overlap with my time on the engineering workstream, and it's my responsibility to make sure that from the perspective of the engineering workstream, this is entirely transparent.
Okay, so in full transparency, that means you would be getting the salary you're currently getting from the engineering workstream, plus one of the leadership roles here with this proposal, correct?
That's right. Because I would have two separate roles, one on the engineering workstream and it's an entirely separate set of time obligations to the KeepKey workstream.
And this role leading the KeepKey workstream would not interfere with you completing the responsibilities as if you didn't have this role in the engineering workstream.
That's right.
Okay.
It's worth pointing out that there's a reason why we put minimum wage for leadership positions, and our highest funded position is a full-time firmware developer to be working on firmware full-time. So our goal actually is to free up more of Postagos time and get a full-time firmware developer working on KeepKey at the direction of this workstream and DAO and platform-related features for this workstream.
Another question that's similar lines. So the engineering workstream currently has, I'm not sure the exact number Defecture does, but several open positions right now. The senior engineers, that roles are significantly above the compensation that the KeepKey workstream would be offering. It seems like the funnel for hiring is a very similar funnel to the engineering workstream. And it's like, I think, a $30,000 plus a very large Fox stream difference between the two work streams in terms of employment for a senior engineer. How do you expect to compete for that same talent?
So the firmware engineer position is at 200 per year cash. You're right; it does not have the Fox stream bonus on top of it. But that, I do want to point that out.
I'm specifically talking about the senior engineer roles that are 180 for the KeepKey workstream, and I think 210 is the current for the engineering workstream, and that does not include the Fox grants.
I'm not entirely certain that that's going to be, well, I don't want to say that's going to be a significant consideration. I mean, we're in competition for engineering talent with the entirety of the Web3 space currently. The set of demands that are currently informing our selection criteria, I would argue, are not as stringent as those on the engineering workstream. The set of tasks that we've currently got outlined are fairly specific. We don't need our engineers we won't need our KeepKey workstream to be quite as versatile as those on the engineering workstream, for one. And in fact, because of the, large amount of interest in the positions on the engineering workstream, it might actually be easier for us to attract talent from the outside than it was, just because of the visibility that's conferred to this workstream by the lucrative open positions that are available in the KeepKey workstream. The ShapeShift engineering workstream. As far as I have seen, because of the extraordinarily high average talent level on the engineering workstream, the selection criteria for the engineering workstream, even though I haven't been part of those interviews directly, has been somewhat stringent.
Mind if I ask a fairly open-ended question here?
Yes, sir.
There's no denying there's a relationship between ShapeShift and KeepKey currently, as was born out of the progressive decentralization. And this whole DAO structure and the DAO not being able to own percentages in companies and equity is, makes things particularly difficult. And Major Hayes's, observations valid that the engineering work streams essentially already directly funding KeepKey firmware development via yourself, and is indirectly funding value that's added by being able to use the KeepKey with the platform. And I think that KeepKey without ShapeShift is, you're basically getting ShapeShift for free, and there's a benefit to ShapeShift of having a officially supported hardware wallet, which can compete with these other incumbents in the space. I guess in the position of you've got physical stock and a company as a necessity for all of the obvious kind of real world reasons. Have you, as Highlander and yourself, considered other traditional funding mechanisms where you could raise considerably more funding, especially given the current nature of the industry and the market, to develop more aggressively on the firmware side? There's not just firmware, and then all of the other kind of I noticed marketing is not a significant part of this budget as well, because fundamentally I see KeepKey as a partner similar to, or a supplier similar to how TaxiStake is. It's more of a partner than it is a supplier. But have you considered other funding mechanisms other than the DAO? Because I feel we may be trying to kind of fit a square peg into a round hole here.
Sure. So that's obviously something that we've discussed in the past. At the current time, fundraising is it's not clear that we're going to need to fundraise immediately, or it's not clear that it would be in our best interest to begin fundraising. Let me rephrase that. It's not clear that it would be in our best interest in the long term to begin significant fundraising now. And again, I do want to reiterate, right, I do think it's important to move away from the point of view that this is ShapeShift making an investment in KeepKey. That's not what we're proposing. What we're proposing, and I'll just to hammer this home, is a partnership sort of agreement whereby we co-fund the set of tasks that benefit both ShapeShift and KeepKey mutually, instead of doing what we're currently doing, where ShapeShift is paying for and devoting engineering resources.
Yeah, I got kind of a blunt answer to that. I don't know if it's in ShapeShift's best interest for us to start taking VC involvement in the company, because I think one of the first things the VC is going to want us to do is to charge fees and to start competing directly with the platform. And that's why I'm wanted to work with KeepKey and invest my own money to keep the direction. I've always been on Willie's side, where I think it's really important what ShapeShift is doing. And I think it's really important that we don't let the traditional VC model of the more involvement we get in them, it sends us down a road that I don't necessarily think is best for ShapeShift, or even the direction I want to take KeepKey in general. Our goal is to support the users and to support our users on the ShapeShift platform. That's just my blunt answer to that.
I guess in terms of the funding, just what I see is that $300,000 over 6 months. We're essentially close to spending that with a single engineer with the engineering work stream. To be similarly blunt, I think $300,000 or a $600,000 annualized budget for a hardware project is just going to be insufficient.
I have one objection to that. I would agree with you entirely if we were attempting to bootstrap a hardware project with $300,000 over 6 months. That's not what we're doing, right? So KeepKey is, we at the time that KeepKey was acquired, we also acquired the KeepKey inventory and the current KeepKey user base. What our internal development efforts are primarily focused around is building a set of tools that makes it easier for the current users to use the existing product. So I would be entirely in agreement with you if what we were attempting to do was bootstrap a company given $600,000 annualized. There's absolutely no way. But we happen to be in a particularly fortunate position where we've already got an outstanding product that just needs a fair bit of TLC.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, absolutely.
How much of the 6-month roadmap overlaps with like the current engineering work streams roadmap for KeepKey specifically?
That's a good question. And I'm not sure that it's one node I have considered before right now. So let's talk through this in real time. Right now,
I guess my question is kind of to DeFi's point, which is like, would we be spending this 150,000 that you're asking for, regardless of whether we entered this relationship or not, by putting in our own engineering resources to complete these same tasks?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the gist.
Yeah, because the roadmap involving KeepKey subsequent to the Cosmos integration has not been hammered out yet, I can't answer that. However, it is entirely reasonable to assume that we would be updating chain support on KeepKey in the similar that which we've done for Cosmos immediately after the Cosmos integration on KeepKey. So it's entirely likely that yes, over the next couple of months, the ShapeShift engineering workstream would be devoting efforts to KeepKey development directly without the existence of this workstream. Now, whether or not the sum total of the costs to support those efforts is on the order of $150,000, I can't say off the top of my head. I'd have to write that down and calculate to give an informed estimate, and I don't want to be quantitative when I, in an explanation when I haven't done that. But to sum it up and answer your question directly, yes, it isn't entirely likely that the engineering workstream would be spending a significant portion of the funding requested from the Treasury in this proposal anyway. And here, we're just offering to in establishing a partnership, effectively contribute to some of those efforts and share profits with the DAO during the time that we're working together.
Hey guys, I'd love to hop in with a few questions. And first, just a general comment, as Josh kind of represented earlier. I'm generally a supporter of this. I think it's at least worth the experiment to see how it goes. I can see a lot of potential upside. I know we're talking a lot about the costs in the short term, but I think as humans, we're really bad at understanding exponential math, no matter how much we talk about it. And this is the sort of thing that with the type of exponential upside, if we can start moving a lot of the assets that are already held on KeepKey into doing useful things on the platform, being traded, being put in Yearn vaults, being put in Foxy and other things ShapeShift puts out, the value to the DAO will significantly outpace any of the costs we're talking about by hilarious amounts of factors. But the risk is in the short term, and this is what the DAO should be considering, is what's the opportunity cost of this money? And I think 150K over 6 months to me is not a crazy investment. It might even be too little, to DeFi's point, but I'm not as concerned about that aspect. I think a lot of the questions that are coming up and a lot of what I've seen in the discussion in the forum and even talked about here today, it all relates in one way or another as to like, how do we best align the interests of the ShapeShift DAO and KeepKey together in this case? Even though it's not an investment, as you say, to some degree, it's absolutely an opportunity cost. DAO could do something else with that 150K. Increase the engineering budget, to DeFi's point, to focus more on KeepKey. It could throw out bounties. It could invest it in DeFi. There's always something else it could do with that money. So the question here is just, how do we make that incentives align? How do we make sure that there's good long-term alignment between KeepKey and the DAO moving forward as part of this partnership? So my first question is relatively simple, and I think I know the answer, but it's important that we talk about it. Will anything that's produced by, let's say that this proposal passes, you guys hire a couple of engineers, they're cranking out various firmware and other code in the next few months. I have to make the assumption all of that's going to be open source, right? You guys aren't going to produce any private code with ShapeShift funded DAO funded money, right?
No, that's right. The entire project is, save for portions that can't be open sourced for obvious security.
Yeah, so then that's good. So on the standpoint, the DAO is getting access to all that open source code. It's not like it's not getting the value of that. Whether or not Spoda wants to work on it, at least has access to it and can use it itself if it wants. I think that is good. I think the thing that is difficult on the long-term incentives that keeps coming back up is simply that, if these things, we produce a bunch of good code, we help get momentum for KeepKey, and then 2 years from now or a year from now, KeepKey is worth a bunch of money. You guys sell the entity, as would be your right as owners. ShapeShift basically won't get any of that long-term value, and that's okay. That's because the DAO can't hold equity at the moment and all these other things. But there are other creative ways I think you guys could think through, and I'm just going to throw out a couple ideas of ways to better align those long-term interests, or just make sure that what the DAO is getting for its money is long-term aligned. So like one of those, for example, would be to structure the money that you're requesting from the DAO simply as a long-term loan, and that we're already going to share KeepKey sales during the time. That's great, but essentially that the KeepKey company would pay back that loan over some period of time, even if there was no renewal in the future. You guys would basically consider that a debit that you need to pay back the DAO at some point if KeepKey grows enough to be able to do that. If that was the case, my guess is there'd be a lot less concern here from the community, because there would be at least some long-term ability for them to get some upside on that money or align well with it. And it would also be, it would also encourage you guys to try to fund as much of this as you can and basically only pull money from the DAO when necessary. I'm not saying that I'm against the current structure, but that might be one possible way that you guys could, basically align these interests long term. Or another possibility, let's say it's not a loan, or let's say it's basically a loan option. You take a loan from the DAO and you have the option to pay it back, or you basically tell the DAO that you're going to pay X percentage of revenues in perpetuity in addition to what you're going to pay during the 6 months. So you basically say, okay, well, 2% of all revenues are always going to go to the DAO now because the DAO supported us when we needed it at this time. Again, none of these necessarily have to be the specific methodology, but I think what you're struggling with, and what I think you should think through a little bit more in ideation here from this feedback, is just what is the best way to align those long-term interests? Because I think some sort of methodology like that would likely clear up what I think is at the core of a lot of the concern here.
Yeah, I completely understand the concern about the potential for the Treasury to lose funds and this not to pan out in a way that's in the best interest of the ShapeShift DAO. Right? There's always some risk of those kinds of, when you're estimating what customer feedback to future development efforts might be. I do want to say, and it's just slight clarifying point, just given the particular verbiage, is that we're not asking ShapeShift to support our efforts, right? These are things that we're going to be doing individually. Right? It seems that there's a lot of overlap with what the ShapeShift engineering and product teams have prioritized. So the particular objectives are slightly different. But for a lot of this work, we're trying to do the same thing in both camps. It's just, why don't we just partner up and do this and split the costs, rather than paying for portions of this out of pocket individually and not entirely. I think I could speak fairly for both of us when both Highlander and myself. When I say that, yeah, we're absolutely open exploring different partnership arrangements. I don't think this call necessarily is time to flesh those out in detail. But yeah, we'd be more than happy to consider other partnership arrangements that the DAO might find more favorable. Given the shared understanding of what the motivations for the partnership are.
Yeah, I just want to express, I think that's a very good idea, and certainly would make me feel better about this if there was, right now, the only benefit, there's code gets built, I got that, but as far as we share some revenue for the 6 months and then it's done. John had a couple good ideas. I don't know exactly what they are, but some other longer term financial benefit to the DAO, I think would make a lot of sense here.
Another perspective that I will offer on this, and this is, I've got my KeepKey hat off, ShapeShift. But given, recent measurements of the assets in orbit currently stored on KeepKeys, there's obvious motivation for a customer retention strategy. In consideration of the total assets in orbit on KeepKeys, does it seem unreasonable from the DAO's point of view to venture $150,000 as a customer retention effort for what was in excess of $2 billion in March of last year?
I think
Yeah,
so.
I personally think it does.
I do too.
Yeah, and
And
to be clear, again, as I said at the beginning, I'm generally supportive, even if the proposal is written. But the reason I brought up those different ideas to maybe consider like a loan or some sort of long-term sales revenue that you're willing to pay back to the DAO is just to show the DAO that we are all in this together and aligned long-term. Basically, that the DAO can share in some of that long-term upside for these efforts. I also think that would make it more likely for the DAO to want to continue to fund this over long-term, to have a perpetual KeepKey workstream past the 6 months. So I just think it's something for you all to think about. I don't know if you want to make those changes or not, but I do think it's a worthwhile discussion.
I agree with you completely, and we are absolutely open to exploring, alternative partnership agreements. We should take some time and think about this in a protracted discussion together.
Agreed. Yeah, I do like all the ideas for how we can ensure this is a healthy long-term relationship. But I think, and this is just my opinion, but it does seem like there's more scrutiny on this proposal than there have been for other work streams. I don't think we've got other work streams to pay back the loan that we're offering them. And also, other work streams aren't necessarily co-investing money into funding the work stream and offering an immediate revenue partnership. So I think I'm super open to any ideas for how we can structure this better. But I agree. I think the proposal as written, I do support, and I think you guys have already put a lot of thought into how the incentives can be aligned. So
I'd like to offer a counterpoint also, just to the thing that I've been talking about lately, which is that there's a lot of pushback on this proposal, despite the fact that we're already spending significant resources on KeepKey directly. So my thought is, well, if the intention is to vote down this proposal, then we should stop working on KeepKey stuff. If we want to work on KeepKey stuff, if we think that's important, then we should work through this relationship. If we don't think that that's important, then we should stop working on it. But it's clearly it's clearly in our roadmap, right?
Yeah.
I don't even understand how the firmware, we don't that's not a ShapeShift thing, right? But we're essentially directly funding KeepKey, saying go work on this, Cosmos firmware. And if we think that this relationship shouldn't happen, then we shouldn't be able. There shouldn't even be a mechanism for which the workstream can go and do firmware updates, because that's a totally separate entity.
Yeah, I want to just point out that the current development efforts towards KeepKey are somewhat of a relic of this, progressive decentralization, right? This was thrust upon all of us, and we've had to make it work. And Pastor and Highlander are in this position now on, kind of playing catch up on the KeepKey workstream side of things. I think the contention is around this is the first time that these and I want to be really, really clear that there's clearly value in the relationship here for both parties involved here. Well, depending on how you look at it, like the DAO, the engineering workstream, KeepKey LLC, for lack of a better term. There's clearly value there. I think the contention is around how these terms are being formalized and the detail that needs to be kind of, given more thought there, such that we get the best outcome for all the parties involved long term.
I can put some numbers on obligations that we have already with KeepKey in the context of security. Our responsible disclosure program covers KeepKey firmware bugs. If we have 2 firmware bugs that we're processing right now that have been reported under that program. When it comes time to pay those out, it's going to be probably $10,000 or $20,000. If we could have avoided that any bug, in KeepKey that we pay out through the RDP, we could have avoided by putting additional development resources in up front. And it makes no sense to me to keep a partial level of support going. And another thing which I do want to bring up, and I know that Highlander and Pasagos won't, because they're nice people, is that if we don't support them in this, that might not be the best decision we ever made. Pasta Ghost is a very important, contributor to the engineering work stream and the DAO in general. Same thing with Highlander. They've, gone out on a limb and bought KeepKey, and because it couldn't be the portions that couldn't be managed by the DAO. We're just fundamentally incompatible with the idea of owning physical inventory. And a lot of that, is based on the fact that we have a community, and I think that getting bogged down in the question of, like, are we ending up accidentally giving them too much money? Are we supporting a private company too much? I think that's all kind of silly. The KeepKey is an STM32F2 in a box. It's not like the hardware is not the revolutionary part. The value comes from the community and from the software and from the firmware, all the stuff that's open source. And I just want to say that stuff to try and, add some context and color. That's all.
Thank you for that, Reed. Yeah, I really appreciate the comments, and from the what am I trying to say? Effort of thought that's been put into this conversation so far, and I would say to the community broadly, to something that was brought up by the two people who spoke, I think Chris and Willie, prior to Reed, is that there has been a bit more scrutiny around this proposal than others previously. I want to say that I'm glad for that. Right. I think this represents a healthy turn in the governance process around proposals, and hope this continues going forward, because it's these kinds of discussions, where differing points of views are aired openly, civilly, and in detail, that are ultimately going to make the DAO, ultimately going to strengthen the DAO, right, and make this community healthier and more productive and more successful overall. So, if there's anyone from the audience, who hasn't spoken yet in support of, or maybe even hopefully in objection to the proposal that stands, I absolutely invite you on stage to share your objection or comments in support, and share your point of view, because doing so is in the best interest of the entire community broadly.
Yeah, I welcome anyone to raise their hands. I want to put some kind of historical context into KeepKey and why I'm so bullish on it in general. Some of the biggest issues I've had working with ShapeShift, and the biggest thing on my mind, was getting ready for a bull run and being ready to capitalize when we get there. Not everybody in here, and not a lot of the people that work in the DAO, were around and working at crypto companies during 2017. But most of my time at ShapeShift, my day-to-day was holding our stack together with what turned out to be almost exponential growth. And at the time, we were processing hundreds of millions of dollars a day. We would release a coin, and in the next day, the software that we would write would just be processing an unimaginable amount of money. And the growth of ShapeShift, we went from 5 people in a basement to over 130 people on an entire floor within just a matter of years. For me, it's the most important thing the DAO can do is being ready for when that happens again. We need to be able to onboard the next 100 million users into crypto, and we need to have all the tools and software and pieces ready to capitalize on that for when it happens again, because it will happen again. And right now, I don't think we're there. And we're working very hard on getting the V2 platform into a place that can support and take a good piece of the pie for when the next market explodes. But hardware support and KeepKey in general, that is the most important thing for us to get our users into, is to how to adequately support and their assets. And self-custody and hardware and high security, these things matter. There could be $100 billion that come into the ecosystem overnight, and the growth that the ecosystem could have, it's been rather tame for the last 4 years, but it could take off at any minute, and we need to make sure that the DAO is ready to capitalize on that. And part of that is getting KeepKey into a place to where we can help onboard that next exponential growth and get to a place where we can capitalize on that. So that's our goal at KeepKey. That should be our goal with the DAO. Is we need to be in a place to take adequate market share for the next bull run, because what we see right now is really just a trickle. It feels big. It feels like Web3 is exploding right now. But anyone that was around 2017, it can just overnight, all our systems can be overloaded, and that's how it was in the past. And we will see that again in our lifetime. I'm sure of it. And that's what I'm trying to organize my life around, is being ready for that next bull run.
That's a speech, Highlander. I don't know how to follow that up, because I agree with you 100%, and saw that exponential growth, and saw you holding everything together too. And yeah, there's a lot of people on the call here who haven't experienced really what a full exponential growth of a bull run can do to any aspect of what we're doing right now. So being prepared for it, I think, is definitely something we have to continue to focus on. So yeah, what a speech, sir. Thank you.
For anyone, I think we're just coming up on being over time here. For anyone who didn't have the opportunity to get any questions in, or comes up with questions in thinking about this discussion later, feel free to DM either Highlander or myself, or post comments in the KeepKey general channel here, or the proposal discussion channel. We'd love to hear from you, and hope to be able to answer any questions from the community, or give clarity on any portions of the proposal or proposed relationship between KeepKey and ShapeShift that haven't been properly clarified. The proposal will also be in ideation for the next 5 or 6 days. So given that, so that's another forum for discussion, should any questions, comments, or concerns are asked.
Thank you for your time, fellas. This was great.
Thank you.
Looks like we got Stuart up here, GM.
Yeah, I had a question, because right, the DAO doesn't have anything that can hold KeepKey accountable for, so there's no real tangible collateral. I was going to ask if it would be in the DAO's best interest to possibly have an additional cost paid by KeepKey in the event that for some reason KeepKey was to abandon the DAO, that they would be essentially paying for the cost, the development cost, to remove KeepKey integration from the software. And that would essentially act as both a penalty, and I know negative reinforcement isn't the best thing, but in the event that KeepKey was to leave for some reason, or stop supporting any integration with the DAO, that's extra development time that has to go towards removing that software, if that was to ever be done, or taking care of any other development needs in that event.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. So
we don't have the ability to prevent our users from using ShapeShift. So we couldn't stop our we're open source software running on open hardware. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't prevent our users from using ShapeShift.
Another thing, now that I'm thinking about it, is every new KeepKey user ShapeShift. Right. The instructions card inside of tamper-evident ShapeShift box contains top line instruction is visit the ShapeShift.com for setup instructions. To Highlighter's point.
So the only thing we can do is not use our resources to develop what ShapeShift wants. So that's sort of what our goal with the workstream is, for us to develop features and to support the platform in the responsibility for what they want for the direction they want to take the platform. So we're open source software, and if we went to a direction that the DAO didn't want to, we're GPL. They could fork the firmware. They could release ShapeShift box, and they could take the project in a direction that the DAO wants to. It's mutual for us to work in a way that makes us both makes our customers happy for both ShapeShift and KeepKey users.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that like a worst case scenario was addressed, and that if it's a non-issue, that it is a non-issue.
I do.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. No, to your. I do have a clarifying question. I think implicit in that statement was a perception that the risk is asymmetrical. Given that what we're proposing is a co-funded workstream here, what motivates the perception of risk asymmetry? Because that's something that we need to address.
Well, the idea is that it's right. The benefit for bringing on KeepKey, right, and continuing support is the 2.3 billion funds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the advent that you're going somewhere else or do something else, your goal would be to also pool that $2.3 billion wherever you're going. Unless I was misunderstanding that when reading it over.
I see. So you're saying, what if subsequent to the partnership, right, we make an attempt to redirect KeepKey traffic to another exchange or something?
Correct.
Got it. I don't think it would be in our best interest to do that, but yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. We can think of creative ways to ensure that it's not possible for us to do that. I was going to make a pasta joke. I shouldn't do that. I don't know how to address that in any way better than to say I think we would be shooting ourselves in the. But you shouldn't have to take my word for it. So let's come up with some creative way to ensure that we couldn't do that, even if we did become different people, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but shooting yourself in the foot also, I'm right, because it's game theory, right? But shooting yourself in the foot would also bring down bring down the DAO as well, right?
Right.
So if you have no other option, you just grab who you can and go down with the ship and just make the damage as much as possible. So also need to prevent that as well.
So they literally have tens of thousands of these things sitting in a warehouse somewhere, and they're in boxes and they're sealed up. And if you open the box and you plug in the thing, it doesn't have any firmware on it. It's got like a bootloader, and it's got a stub firmware that just says go to beta.shapeshift.com. It is completely impossible at that kind of scale for them to change that. So they're already screwed if we don't like them. If they made a change, I get that it's a nice selling point to say that they bought the users, but I think that's probably the wrong way to say it. It's, they bought the responsibility for the users. They can't force the users to go anywhere in particular if, they can't force the users to even keep their firmware up to date. If they did change anything that was detrimental to the DAO can just release its own branch of KeepKey firmware. This is the DAO flavored firmware. You can run this and it'll do whatever we want it to do and think is best. And you can choose to trust us instead of them. So I don't think it's literally physically or technically possible for them to screw us on this.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't considered that. But yeah, that's right. We couldn't stop redirecting users, any new KeepKey users to ShapeShift. primarily, because doing so would require that we broke the shrink wrap and the tab rampant and seal on every KeepKey sold.
Thank you for the answer.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. That was a good one. That was a very good question.
All right. It doesn't look like we have very many questions left. Did you guys want to say anything else in closing here?
I'm wondering whether it would be useful to anyone. Actually, yeah, no, I'm almost certain it would be useful. So what we're proposing here is a partnership, right? We know a lot about what's going on at ShapeShift, working with the engineering teams, but it's not, we haven't presented to the community what our plans are at KeepKey. So would you guys be interested in seeing a bit about, the proposed long-term roadmap for development at KeepKey?
I would say yes, because like to my previous question, if we see that there's a lot of alignment between what the DAO would like to do and what KeepKey would like to do, then I think there's more incentive there for us to work together. If it turns out that KeepKey's roadmap is, not aligned, right, then that'll also inform the decision. So I think understanding what you guys want to get done in the next 6 months will be extremely useful to kind of understand. Would we have already been spending effort on those things anyway?
Okay. All right. Yeah, let's do that. Give me just a sec and we'll key up a presentation.
I'll let you take over the Slack or the Zoom.
Okay, let me open the Zoom link. Just a second. And I'll share screen. Okay. Can you see that?
I can.
Yes, we can.
All right. Do you want to take this, Matt, and I'll move through the presentation?
Yeah, so this is our team. So the total cryptocurrency market cap is over $3 trillion. This has been growing steadily over the years. So all this money is stored somehow, whether it be software or hardware. This is all money that needs to be stored by some form of wallet. Ledger themselves have sold over 3 million hardware wallets. 1.5 million of those customers go to Ledger Live monthly. Ledger Live would be their primary revenue source of Ledger as a company. These are numbers that they've published. They claim they have over 300 billion assets in orbit, and they've recently cleared a 380 million Series C funding, and that was last year. KeepKey at the time, we had roughly 2 billion assets in orbit and around 40,000 KeepKeys sold to date.
For some context, this is what was presented to centralized ShapeShift when we made our bid to acquire KeepKey independently. This is all relevant to the DAO now because the same alignment of interests exists between KeepKey and ShapeShift decentralized. So what we asked for was for centralized ShapeShift transfer ownership of all KeepKey devices and intellectual property to our parent company, Key Handlers LLC. What we promised in benefit, in return, the proposed benefit that we identified was that the platform was and will benefit from the addition of new features on KeepKey because all KeepKey users are ShapeShift users by default. We have we talked about different mechanisms through which we could establish long-term revenue streams to the DAO treasury as a result of KeepKey. So one of the proposed revenue streams that we discussed was like bounties that we'd take on from external partners. Now that was revised as a result, and that was revised as a result of some for this work stream, because we didn't want to provide, or what am I trying to say, propose a primary revenue stream that was speculative. I can't guarantee that we're going to be able to, establish whatever number of partnerships over the next 6 months, because this is not trends. The sales trends are going to continue with valuable revenue share. The primary and product and engineering as to whether or not the development efforts required to from the engineering work stream place that into an additional work stream, supplementary work stream, as the sole responsibility of doing these kinds of things. And to centralize ShapeShift, it was advantageous for us to take over KeepKey in that, partially in that, they could be relieved of their duties to support KeepKey, and we could ease the transition to a decentralized organization from centralized ShapeShift. The rest of these slides won't require so much context, but I just wanted to give some explanation for the way the text in the subsequent slides is working. So ShapeShift, one of the primary revenue streams to decentralize ShapeShift is our affiliate revenue programs. So we've got quite a lot of users, quite a lot of money stored on KeepKeys. As we've discussed, previously, and making our argument as to why it's valuable for ShapeShift to keep KeepKey customers around, the more money that's transacted across ShapeShift broadly, the greater the revenues to the DAO treasury. And so, given that there is a lot of unallocated capital, or what am I trying to say, available capital on KeepKeys, it's not currently being transacted through the new ShapeShift application. Should we bring those customers to ShapeShift, that directly translates into increased DAO revenues, provided they are trading as normal users do. And if we increase DAO revenues, that drives value for all Fox holders. It's another portion of this, right? It's not just as treasury revenues increase, so does the utility of Fox as a governance token, and that's value that's attributed to all Fox holders. Matt, do you want to?
Yeah, this is the fun part. So looking at the hardware wallet industry as a whole, probably the biggest deficit in hardware wallets currently is the lack of contract insight. You can see Ledger approaching this and Trezor both approaching this, but I feel it's actually inadequate. The vast majority of the contracts and interactions that I've been doing, and I use all three devices, do not adequately display to the user what is transacting and what they are appropriately doing. So we're going to be focusing on contract insight, as in what exactly these contracts are doing that you're signing. Focus on ease of use. These are going to be about onboarding and getting the next wave of users into hardware wallets as a whole. Hardware wallets use is rather low compared to what it should be, and that could be one of the main reasons. And third-party integrations is a huge one. Probably one of the biggest things holding KeepKey back was the inability and the complexity of adding KeepKey into the ecosystem. So we're focusing on making third-party integrations much easier with well-documented APIs and SDKs and a better developer experience.
So specifically, in order to the issues stated, we want to launch separate development objectives. Ledger has Ledger Live, Trezor has Trezor Suite. These are convenient to use management tools so that their customers can maintain their devices and perform routine operations quickly with an intuitive desktop interface. KeepKey is significantly lacking in that regard. The command line applications are a little bit cumbersome to use, haven't been maintained, and this would bring a familiar interface to KeepKey's existing user base. And as Matt discussed before, I think the biggest advantage, or the biggest advantage that we intend to hold over competition, or maybe the most promising advantage, rather, right, is establishing a sense of security in the mind of customers by fixing the blind signing problem. Users have been habituated to blindly signing transactions with arbitrary hex data. Nobody actually reads this. It's impossible to decode at first glance, and the UX is terrible on Ledger in order to approve these smart contract operations where you have to click through 8-10 screens and all of that. We intend to solve all of that. I think when these, if a feature like this is deployed on the market, right, it would be a no-brainer as to whether or not this would be preferable. If this were available to me today, there's absolutely no way to use a wallet that didn't provide the insight, so I could be confident in knowing that what I'm signing is what I need to sign. Lastly, we intend to produce an SDK that is documented with multi-language bindings so that interested third-party developers are able to quickly add KeepKey support to external applications. Matt, do you want to go over any of these?
Oh, yeah. So our market acquisition strategy is advertising new features that focus on Ethereum and smart contract interaction specifically. We're going to highlight the present dangers in the crypto space with publishing case studies and just mistakes that other users have made that have cost them a lot of money with other hardware wallets. I think Casa is a pretty good example of being very transparent and looking their PR on helping users find the mistakes that other users have made has been really well. We're going to demonstrate how the ShapeShift platform can address user security concerns with this and build a reputation for protecting customers' assets. And this is our Workstream proposal that we've envisioned back then. We want to co-fund the Workstream with the ShapeShift DAO itself. We will participate in for-profit asset additions for KeepKey and the platform itself. And from the beginning, we were planning on sharing revenues between the ShapeShift DAO and ourselves, so that we both can take some of the liability, and most importantly, we both get the upside of success for when our products take off, like we know they will.
I think the remaining are only relevant to the acquisition from last year. But what we really wanted to get across is what the proposed roadmap looks like for KeepKey. Why we're excited about having taken over KeepKey, and very excited about what KeepKey is going to yield in the future. I don't know why it didn't really dawn on us until recently, but we're using a partnership agreement, so we'd like the ShapeShift DAO to get excited about that too. Because if we build a competitive product that can not only compete with but kill Ledger and Trezor, which is what we'd love to do, well, then all of us benefit, because ShapeShift and KeepKey are inextricably intertwined, and given the mutual benefit of that interaction from the years preceding, I mean, we'd like to keep that kind of relationship alive and thriving in the years going forward. Okay, so I think I'll go ahead and stop sharing here. Any more questions about that? Answer any questions, bring any questions to mind. Cause any people drop off the call. I'm joking.
Yep. So our roadmap has been focused around Web3 and DeFi as a whole. We feel that aligns with the platform as well, the ShapeShift platform. And yeah, I just want to kind of close it off there.
Well, thank you very much, fellas. That presentation was really great. Icing on the cake there after the talk. So thanks for giving us a peek into your guys' roadmap and your intentions and how this kind of really aligns with what the DAO's best interests are too. So you've given a lot for us to think about and respond to in the forum posts. And thank you so much for answering all of the questions everyone brought to you. This has been a really great discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I don't remember who suggested this, but this was a fantastic discussion and a great idea. And should this, what am I trying to say, seem reasonable to, answer any questions going forward, I'd be more than happy to jump on another call at any time.
Awesome. Yeah. If we end up getting messy enough in the forum that it deserves another full-on conversation, I think that could be warranted. But for the most part, I think that we got a lot more alignment and understanding here from just being able to chat with everyone. So I'm really happy with knowing more about what your guys' intentions are here. And I hope that if people have some more questions, they can direct them either to you guys directly in the KeepKey general channel here in Discord or the forum posts while we're still in ideation. But yeah, I'm super excited for this and what it means. And if we can really align all of our energies together to be ready for that next bull run when it happens, because we're nowhere near it yet. So thanks, guys. Thank you all for staying extra. This was a long call, but a well-deserved one. And I hope you all have a good rest of your evening. GM.
GM.
Yeah.